Could change over to that.
No, that doesn't. Say something. Hello.
Can you guys hear me? Oh, how about that?
Is there music?
Can you guys hear the music too? Hooray! There we go. Okay, so what was going on is essentially OBS. It was just slow this morning. OBS hadn't had his coffee yet, I guess. There was an encoding issue. So that's that. Sorry for the interruption, folks. And now we can get back to the main show.
And it's recording too.
Yep, so this will be a weird little moment on YouTube that no one else will understand. They'll be like, what the heck is going on, guys? But, yeah. Back to that guy.
Thank you. Well, I broke it again. Yay me. I can do that with electronic things. Sometimes, there are people like that where everything's working really fine. Back in the day, it was like the TV was on, right? And you're watching this show, you're watching, something really cool like Wyatt Earp, right? Watching Wyatt Earp or maybe Have Gun Will Travel. And then there's a person who walks into the room and the whole thing goes snow. I don't know if anybody... you can see emulations of that nowadays because that doesn't really happen with the digital stuff. It just breaks up and starts, becoming wavy and that kind of thing. But back in the day, before color TV, you would get what was called snow, which was kind of this random pattern of white dots. You can do that. They actually are able to colorize old black and white stuff, like old movies and TV shows, because they're able to, track back the reflectivity of and the grayscale and impute a color to it. But anyway, back in the days of black and white, before there was color, before color was affordable for people who, actually bought televisions. There were certain people who would walk into the room and the screen would just go snow because they were, the kinds of folks. I don't know. There's a keyboard here. We were using that to fix things. So I'll put this over here so that it covers up some of the things that I need to see. No, I wasn't painting the keyboard. I could paint the keyboard. That would be easy. So everybody missed my monologue. I was gone for like 9 or 10 days, so I missed, I think, 4 streams. But now Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons is back at least for 2 weeks before we are traveling again to visit relatives. This nonstop travel, always something. Anyway, yes, I just finished a dog sitting stint. The dogs finished the dog sitting stint still alive and healthy. That was pretty good. I finished kind of a little bit sleep deprived because the dogs can't sleep unless they are with someone, and they're just bed hogs. They're big dogs. They're big standard poodles. One of them is like 75 pounds and the other one's 50 something. Anyway, they need to cuddle. And cuddling interferes with sleeping. So anyway, I caught up a little bit yesterday, so I should be almost as coherent as I usually am, which isn't very. So let's see. I haven't done a flip yet because of the technical difficulties. I refound my brushes. I had found my brushes before, and now I found them again. And I'm working on this Basilisk. And that's what I'll be painting when I get around to painting. So during my previously streamed but unheard monologue, I said that you're probably wondering if I can remember what I'm doing. And my line was, as you know, when you watch the stream, I never know what I'm doing. So whether I remember what I'm doing or not is irrelevant, because I don't know what I'm doing. So what I don't know what I'm doing today is I'm going to paint the underbelly of this basilisk a lighter blue, counter shading kind of thing. And then it's got a lot of spikes up here. There are a lot of spikes, and those spikes need to be painted red. And I'm going to get ambitious and paint them red, and then paint the tips of them kind of an orangish red, so that there's a highlight on the top of each one of those. And that should take a while. I need to paint the teeth, and then the pictures I've seen of basilisks show that there's kind of like a lot of white. I'm going to use ivory because plain white is just a little bit too bright. Probably use ivory or bone white to paint highlights on the outsides of all of these legs. And it will end up looking, like all of my stuff, like it's painted really well between the lines, but it's not very lifelike. So the last things I did the rainbow unicorn, just to show you that I actually get things done. And I did replace for the second time the arrow point on this one. I like how the colors came out on this one. Good grief. Okay. And it looks like when I was putting the purple, there's a purple iridescent paint on the wings that in the right light kind of shows. Got on the side of the model here, but I'm just not going to bother fixing it because you're never going to see that. I used to see it. So I'm going to go back to trying to paint the underbelly of this, which is not going to be easy because it's between the base and anyway, Painting the base of this is going to be a pain too, without getting paint on the underbelly. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to paint the teeth. I'm going to paint the spikes red, and then put orange highlights on them. And I think I might actually paint the spikes first, because that red paint will have to dry before I can highlight the tips of all the spikes. So, I'm going to relaxingly paint the spikes, which will take the better part of forever because there's so many of them. To put my head magnifier on and use a little brush, and then paint the underbelly and try to get some shading. Ugh, sorry, I need to take this. Well, I hope they leave a message. My cell phone was ringing, and I'm expecting some sort of delivery later today. And for some reason, it didn't. Oh, good grief. There we go. It was still on an end break screen, so I hope it's still working. I haven't done a flip yet. Let me do a flip. Let me flip a big thing here. And then I'm going to paint spikes. Got one sear, not sear, two not sears, 2 and 2, two sears and 4 not sears. Not sears, it's just a sear. Okay, so I should say 2 sear, but there were 2 of them, so it's plural, so it's sears, but it's not sears. Okay? Don't want to do any brand naming for the thing. Yeah, anyway, I expected an important call about a delivery, and a call came through on my cell phone, and I tried to answer it, and it wouldn't answer. I don't know. The phones, seem to work really well for everything except being a phone. And I find that the phone function on these smartphones is like the least reliable, least effective function on the whole thing. I'm stirring paint in the vortex. So in order to waste more time, a little bit later in the stream, probably, what is it going on, 11? Okay, about 11:30, I'm going to talk about what will happen after the submarine is done on Submarine Wednesday, because it's actually getting to the point where I can imagine it being done. I use that word very carefully. Imagine it being done, because it's quite different from actually being done. Okay, let me see if these people left a message. I'm going to use my smartphone to see if it left a message. That's what disappeared. Okay. On my whole smartphone, I had a message icon here that said, did somebody leave a message or not? And then that disappeared, of course. I don't know. There it is. You get to watch me do this. I don't want to miss it if it's important. It's supposed to give me a transcript. Okay. Yeah, this is a new record. Part of it was because of the technical problems. Well, I'll just do this during break. What can I say? Anyway, yeah, I'm going to start painting now. So after dealing with a technical failure, having to reboot and restart everything, remembering what I don't remember or know how to do, and finally getting around to working on the Basilisk. But these are tiny little spikes all over the top of the Basilisk, so I'm putting these on so I can see what I'm doing. Often, but not always, being able to see what I'm doing improves the chances of being able to do it. Oh, this is going to take forever. Sorry, but it is. It's just going to take forever. Each of these little spikes has to be painted individually and carefully. And there's like a million of them. Now I'm going to have to think of something to talk about while I'm doing this, because unless I just say I don't care and I'm going to make a mess of it, and I really don't like to. If I'm going through the trouble of painting something, I want to at least give the impression that I have some skill. Not necessarily that I'm very good at it, but at least gives sort of the impression that I have some skill at painting, because this is, relaxing painting. Not always very relaxing if it's just a mess. And just having it be just a mess happens often enough on this stream that I don't need to go out of my way to do it deliberately. So yeah, is it on camera? Okay, at least it's sort of on camera. Maybe I'm gonna move the camera down a little bit, even if it's in the way, because you might see there's red going on. That's what's happening here in Relaxing Painting, is I'm putting red paint on these 1.5 million spikes that got insidiously printed all over the top of the Basilisk. Minifigs like this get printed right here on site. The dungeon tiles get printed on the PLA printers, of which there are 3 behind me. Minifigs like this get printed on the rosin printer, which is across the hall. Because the rosin printer will give just a whole lot more. It just gives you a whole lot more detail than the PLA printer, which prints things pretty well. We've gotten some pretty good stuff off of it. But then the rosin printer arrived, and now I get minifigs with all sorts of spikes on the top, which have to be individually and carefully painted. I'm guessing that the Basilisk might end up appearing in our D&D stream, because it's just the kind of thing that does, right? If you've got a Basilisk, you might as well make your players confront it. Just coming apart at the tip here. The one thing I know about the Basilisk is that I should not paint the eyes until the very end. And then I need to be pretty careful when I do it, to not look at the eyes once they're painted. This is tedious. Earlier along, I was talking about people who have, I don't know, some sort of like electromagnetic interference field or something. You know, they're like I was saying, back in the day when there was black and white television, and there wasn't any color yet. That's the old joke. That in fact the world was black and white. Why is TV black and white then? Well, because that's how the world was. Color didn't happen until whatever. That wasn't really true. It's just something you told kids. It ended up confusing them and probably making them bad people. Even though you think it's funny, you know, kid might not know that you're just joking about things. Then they go to school, you know, they're like in kindergarten or first grade or something. It's like, did you know that my dad grew up when the world didn't have any colors? And then the kid is subjected to all sorts of ridicule because they believed what their dad told them about black and white TV and the world not having color. It led to all sorts of, like, later on parental issues of not trusting things that their father tells them, which is not a good thing because a father should be trustworthy. But yeah, I mean, that kind of thing should just not happen. So, TV was black and white because even though it was possible to broadcast in color, it was very inefficient and expensive, right? In black and white, you just had a grayscale. That was relatively efficient to just broadcast one variable. But in order to effectively do it in color, you had to do three different colors: green, red, and blue, and they had to be synchronized. Broadcast had to be synchronized sufficiently so that the color mix came through appropriately. Otherwise, if the green, red, and blue, I'll just call them channels, even though that's not what they were. If the green, red, and blue transmissions were not synchronized, then you'd get all sorts of weird distortions, not only of color, but of also, the content. So sending that out was complicated, and then receiving it and displaying it was even more complicated. Broadcasting was pretty rare. TVs were pretty expensive. We didn't have one until they'd been out for quite a while. My father invested in ever higher quality black and white TVs. In fact, black and white TVs, the high-end ones, the fancy black and white TVs, were sepia toned. What was transmitted wasn't changed, but the phosphors on the screen changed so that they were less harsh. They had more red on it than blue. That was just the magic of the phosphors on the screen. Anyway, yeah, I'll probably digress some more, but I was talking about people who would walk into the room then, and you'd be watching your show, because it's your shows. That you'd be watching your shows because that's what they are. I don't know if people talk about that. I have to watch my show, like you possessed it or something. And the disruptive person would walk in, and the screen would just go to snow. It was, a little bit like the light speed effect you got at the beginning of Star Wars, except that instead of streaming, instead of having lines that streamed across, it was just random white dots that filled your screen. And they weren't dots that stayed in one place. It was just moving around all the time. And we called it snow because, you have to call it something. And snow is a lot easier to say than random white dots that are moving around constantly and appearing on my screen. So I'll digress here too and say, people talk about how the indigenous people in the far north have like 27 words for snow or ice, right? And we're all impressed by that. Well, the difference is that we do too. I mean, we have all those different words for different kinds of snow. It's like, ooh, this snow is slushy. This is really, we'll call it dry or powdery or flaky or whatever. But instead of an individual word for each kind of snow, we just use adjectives. Well, when you spend your time with a lot of snow and it makes a difference, instead of saying, oh, that's really fluffy snow, you just have a word for it because it's so much more efficient. So instead of saying, we just have random white dots on a black gray background, actually it wasn't really fully black, gray background that are in constant motion, instead of a coherent picture, because Ned or whoever was the person who destroyed the picture when they walked into the room. Why did I start on this? Well, because apparently, at least this morning, I was like Ned, and I turned on everything and it broke. Which is why this stream started without any sound or being recorded, because it gets recorded so it can be shown later on YouTube. You can always watch or rewatch or unwatch these things on YouTube later. Yeah, well, apparently I managed to do that this morning. I was like the Ned one who turned your program into snow. And then you can hear the dialogue. It's like, Ned, what did you do? It's like, I just walked into the room. It's like, you just walked into the room and my program turned into snow. Well, you want me to leave now? It's too late now. It's almost over. Catch it on reruns this summer. They always show the reruns on summer. Ed sits down on the sofa and the picture comes back. And it's like, how did you do that? Do what? You made the picture come back. It says, I never made it go away. Yeah, you did. You walked into the room, and as soon as you walked into the room, my show went all to snow. It says, I didn't do that. Well, you must have, because it happened when you walked into the room. How would I do that? I said, I don't know. Maybe you have like some sort of electrical stuff on you or something. It's like, what do you mean electrical stuff on me? I don't know. All I know is that you walked into the room, and as soon as you walked into the room, my show went all to snow, and I missed it. I don't know. And I'm never going to know what's going to happen. Well, I do know, because when Martha comes over tomorrow, she watches this show too. It's my favorite show. And her favorite show, and we always like to talk about it, but she's going to be able to talk about it because she saw the show, and I didn't, because when you walked into the room, you made the TV go to snow. Says, I didn't make the TV go to snow. How could I possibly make the TV go to snow? I didn't touch anything. Well, I guess you don't have to touch anything. All you have to do is walk in the room and you break the picture. That's how the dialogue would go on. This is kind of fun, recreating this dialogue. This is actually kind of like things really did happen then. Anyway, yeah. So, that's the story of black and white TV and people walking into the room and having magical electromagnetic powers that disrupt the picture. I mean, for all we know, that might actually be the case, that an individual, maybe they're wearing the fuzzy sweater that they got for Christmas, even though they pretended that they didn't like it because it was like a joke sweater or something. even though they might have pretended that they really do like it because of that. Maybe that sweater carried a bunch of static or something, and they walked in shuffling their feet on the carpet and it discharged. I mean, that could happen. And back then, the antenna frequently was like a set of rabbit ears. That's what they were called. Just on the top of the TV right inside, and it could well have been. It might have been. Just speculate about that Ned really did make the picture go away and turned it into snow because of the combination of static discharge from the fuzzy sweater and shuffling on the carpet. That static discharge was picked up by the antenna on the TV, which was, right near the door. Ned walked in, so it could have been that there were circumstances in which somebody would walk into a room and in fact disrupt my show. I got down too far. I don't know if I'm going to try to fix those or not. And the paint just got on past the edges of the spikes. Just a little too far. This is again one of those things where if we encounter it, it's going to be on screen. It'll be like that far away, right? Maybe even further from the camera, and you won't see the flaws that I can see when I'm within a few inches of it using head magnifiers. But anyway, yeah, snow was a thing that happened. And the black and white TVs, losing your vertical hold so that the picture felt like it was rolling, top to bottom or bottom to top. You had to adjust that. People have no idea what that is anymore. You had a vertical hold and a horizontal. And these were things that you could control on the TV, and you needed the vertical hold because it was typical. Picture would just start rolling. Needed to adjust the rate. Which the lines were streamed across your screen because it just gave the impression of it moving. Sometimes it was really very difficult to get the vertical hold to hold. Which is why, when it came time to watch my shows, especially like in the evening, it was this whole, you didn't just turn the TV on and sit down and watch the show. You had to get started like a minimum of 5 minutes before the show, sometimes longer, because there were things that needed to be done to make sure that you could see the show, and it wasn't just whether or not your cable service was working that evening or not. First of all, you had to warm up the TV. That doesn't make sense, but a television set ran on vacuum tubes, and the vacuum tubes needed to heat up so that they were emitting the electrons across the vacuum. That's just why they're called vacuum tubes, to the receiver end. And it's kind of like each tube was sort of like a transistor in a way. where there was like an emitter and a gate and a receiver kind of situation. It was kind of like that. And there were a lot of tubes in these TVs, and in order for it to really work, all the emitters had to be emitting. And so the electricity from your outlet had to run through the tubes, and they emitted electrons because they got warm. As they heated up, the electrons got emitted, and you could actually have a multi-sensory show of it. As these things warmed up, they actually warmed up. Each tube got pretty warm, pretty hot. And so there were vents in the TV so that there was airflow to provide cooling air to these tubes, including the picture tube, but a lot of the other tubes, and you could look through the vents, and the tubes glowed this really nice orange color. So you could see it warming up. You could see them start out with a really dull kind of dark orange, and then they just got brighter and lighter as they warmed up. The paint congealed in the well there, so it wasn't really usable anymore. And, as kids, we used to sit there and look through the vents and watch it warm up. And all the tubes would start to glow, get brighter and brighter. And, warm air, pretty significantly warm air would come out through the vents because all these tubes were, getting warm when emitting infrared. So you had to have the TV warm up because all the tubes needed to be emitting, at full speed in order for them to work. And that took a little while. It felt like a long time, but it was sometimes like 2 or 3 minutes before everything was going. And the picture tube was one of these gigantic vacuum tubes, is what it was. And that had to warm up too. So you'd turn it on. Hey kids, go warm up the TV. Which didn't mean like putting a blanket on it or directing a heater to it or anything. It just meant turning it on and waiting for all these tubes to start a-glowing. So we'd sit up close to it and watch it warm up. And when they warmed up sufficiently, then you started to get a picture on the front of the screen. And you turn the knob, because that's how you actually change channels. You have to physically turn a knob on the TV, the tuner. You turn that to if you hadn't already, you turn it to the channel that you wanted. And then other parts, that was just the beginning of the ritual. It was just, waiting for things, turning it on and waiting for things to warm up enough to actually work. And then almost invariably you'd get like a really fuzzy picture. There'd be the semblance of what you wanted to see, but that snow phenomenon would overlay it. It was a frequent sort of thing, and that's because the antenna was not picking up the signal. Rabbit ears, well, there were different antenna, there was one in the TV that didn't work, so you attached a rabbit ears, which are these extension chromed steel extension things that you could make shorter or longer and just orient and like 300 just all over the place, vertically, horizontally. You could orient them all sorts of different ways. And so what you wanted them to do is to be the right length to capture the wavelength of the station you were watching. And that varied from channel to channel. And they also had to be oriented in a certain orientation relative to the place that was broadcasting. And I can't remember if they were like parallel to the waves, perpendicular to the waves. I really can't recall. It didn't much matter. That's what you did was adjust the length and the orientation of both bits of the rabbit ears until the picture came in as clear as possible. This was actually a two-person job, because one person, usually the rabbit ears, they were on the top of the TV, and it was very difficult to see the screen while you were standing there manipulating these rabbit ears. So you had to have one person watching the picture and another person moving the rabbit ears around. Some pairs were better at this than others, because it's like if you had somebody who was just yelling out vague directions like, no, go the other way. It's like, other compared to what? Or you had it better that way, go back to what? And then there were some that were much more precise in giving direction to the rabbit ear manipulator. And you couldn't ever do anything very quickly, because you might like go past what I mean. Like if you were moving the rabbit ears from a more horizontal to a more vertical, or you're just moving one of them actually, horizontal and more vertical orientation, and you moved it too quickly, you could go past. It's like, no, it was good then. What do you mean then? Go back. So you go back, and then you go back too quickly, and then you'd have to like iterate back and forth. Everybody would become irritated at your iteration, because it was getting closer and closer to the time for the show to start, and the picture was still fuzzy. Middle of all of this, while this was all going, and sometimes not only was the picture fuzzy, as you attempted, the two of you attempted to get the rabbit ears in just the correct orientation to optimize the picture, which was never really very good anyway, especially in some of the, like if you had a fairly inexpensive television. Well, that's where the vertical hold came in. It was that sometimes, regardless of the quality of the picture, it would scroll. And sometimes the vertical hold was right up in front, so someone could adjust the vertical hold while they were watching. But more often than not, especially on the earlier sets, it was this tiny little plastic knob on the back of the set. So again, that was a two-person job. A little more. Nope, too far. Turn it back the other way, and you'd be manipulating this knob while somebody was watching the screen, yelling at you to do certain things that you didn't know what they were talking about as you continued to turn the knob to make the picture stabilized. And then when you had it stable, then you played with the antenna a little more until it was as clear as one could get it with the equipment available at the time. There, I managed to fill the time pretty well. I've got red spikes all over the top of this. I suppose, there's some chin spikes here. I should make the chin spikes red too. And I am just going to rotate this. It's almost invariably, as I look at it from different angles, I can see, like in this angle, I can see a whole lot of spots that were missed because I wasn't painting from this direction. Anyway, yeah. I mean, if you didn't start a minimum of 5 minutes before the show started, and sometimes you really wanted to give yourself 10 minutes because you went through this process. It was a process that required 2 people in order to get it done really effectively, of warming it up. One person could do the warm-up, but you really needed 2 people to do the antenna adjustment, and sometimes, depending on the location of the vertical hold knob, it'd require 2 people to get the vertical hold done. The vertical hold, sometimes, I mean, it would just not, it wouldn't hold. So you'd be watching your show, and then partway into it, this picture would start scrolling again. That was really annoying. Somebody had to jump up and do the vertical hold. Yeah, that was part of the trials one had to go through. Those old black and white TVs. So what was really kind of weird about it is, like, so you'd have channel 12, okay, or 8 or something. Let's say channel 9. I'll say channel 9 because where I was growing up, there was no channel 9. And so I can talk about channel 9, without getting into anything that has anything to do with reality. So channel 9 is the last channel you watched when you went to bed. And then say channel 9 was the first channel you wanted to watch the next day, and you didn't change anything. Okay? The rabbit ear antennas were left in exactly the same place. The vertical hold knob was not touched since the point at which it was actually holding vertically. Okay? And you'd let the TV warm up, and no, channel 9 wasn't there. All you got was snow on the screen with a little bit of semblance of maybe you could see somebody's face or something. You couldn't really be sure. And it was scrolling. And you go, how could that be? Everything is just as I left it last night on channel 9. And now this morning, channel 9 isn't coming through. And the worst thing is probably you turn the TV on, and you're alone in the house now at this point because kids have gone to school and your spouse has gone to work, and you wanted to watch something on channel 9, and now you have to play with the rabbit ears and the vertical hold without having anybody looking at the picture while you're back there poking away at this stuff. So there's a few places here where I got red paint on the back of the Basilisk rather than just on the... But they're not really noticeable, so I'm going to mess with those. So you got to hear about all of that because when I turned things on this morning, something weirdly mysterious wasn't working. Like no sound was coming through, and it wasn't recording, and you had tech support down here for like 20 minutes, and you got to see some of tech support. And so I was like Ned, the person who walks into the room and somehow or other manages to make the TV picture just all go to snow. There. So now there's a bunch of red spikes on the top of this. And I'm going to take these off for a minute. The other thing I'd like to do is have a sip of coffee, but where did I put the mug? There it is. I have a spot back there where I put the mug because ever since I knocked one over, cream in the coffee, knocked one over and spilled like this much creamy coffee all over. It was over there. I didn't spill it on the stuff I was working on, but I did spill it on all the brushes and pens and microphone and, yeah. That was a day. Anyway, I had my Ned moment this morning when I turned all of this on and it looked like everything was working, and then it turned out that there wasn't any sound, and then it turned out it wasn't recording, and then it turned out that things kept turning out. But eventually got it working. All right. So the timing on this is actually pretty good. I said I was going to, at 11:30, talk about what will follow up the submarine. So I'm going to do that now. Coffee painting. Does that mean painting with coffee? Painting your coffee? Painting coffee beans? Coffee painting, can take on a whole lot of different meanings. We could speculate on that for a while. I think that there's an art form. There probably really is this, because if you can think of it, it happens somewhere. Is that somewhere someone is taking coffee beans and painting them to maybe look like little ladybugs? You could really do that pretty easily because they already do, right? And so painting coffee beans to look like little ladybugs or things like that probably is a thing. There is coffee painting going on somewhere. You can probably go on, I don't know eBay, Etsy, there's all sorts of places where you can buy stuff. I'm sure you can get painted coffee beans. Painting coffee after it's brewed, that would be a challenge, but not totally impossible. One could paint the surface, like when you get a latte or something and they have little leaves and hearts and stuff on it. You could probably get paints that allowed you to paint the surface of the coffee, either with creamer in it or not. And then, there is painting with coffee. And it would all be in sepia tones, but depending on how dark the beans were roasted and how deeply they were brewed, you could have a whole range all the way from practically white, with just a tinge of brown in it, all the way to practically black. So you could paint with coffee as well. It'd be like painting with watercolors. And I'm sure people have done that too. You could probably go on whatever, site you wanted to and find paintings that were done with coffee. So you probably find coffee painting in terms of painted coffee beans and things painted with coffee. You probably can't find any things where someone painted the surface of the liquid coffee, because that would be really hard to ship. Okay, so after the submarine is done, which will happen sometime during 2024, I'm no longer speculating that it will be during the first quarter. It might be, I'm aiming for July 4th, and there won't be a stream then. Okay, but that's kind of like the target date, getting it done by then. So I've been pulling out other models of my humongously ridiculous large collection of models that I never got around to building, that I planned to build after I retired because I would have nothing to do other than build models. And then I didn't do any of them. So I've been pulling some out and showing them to people who are watching the streams, getting some feedback about what would come next. There have been there was a Deep Space Nine space station, the Deep Space Nine station itself with fiber optics decided not to do that because it's still in its shrink wrap, and it is actually worth more than I paid for it. There was this gorgeous, very large scale Corvette, 1957 fuel-injected Corvette convertible. And I have to say, this was in the running right up until now, but I'm not ready to take this on, largely because I need to practice airbrushing a lot in order to get a finish like this on the model. Okay. That's what the model is supposed to look like when it's done, and I can guarantee that mine would not look that way. So we have to say goodbye to the convertible, the Corvette, as an option. See it on the floor where I'll step on it later. So the other one that was one of the originals that I pulled out, and it's still in the running, is the Savoia S21 Porco Rosso's plane. Okay, and this is a pretty cool model. It will also require learning how to airbrush to get it red, but you get a Porco with it. That'll be fun, and the fuselage lifts up from the base so you can see some of the interior detail. So it's almost like the submarine in that there's a cutaway you could see. So we're keeping this in the running. Some of the ones that came out more recently is the Lockheed SR-91 Aurora, which actually doesn't exist. Maybe not. You can look it up. Look up Aurora Project, and you'll find out that there's all sorts of government denials that this like Mach 4 or 5 plane ever really existed, but there's a model of it, and it's not a very good model at all. It's kind of a mediocre model, but I thought, it'd be fun to at least look at it, and it might at some point be relatively simple to make. Again, it have to be airbrushed to make it look good. There was the famous Fords. This was the rear engine, the Lotus Ford that won the Indianapolis 500 in 1965. That gave rise to the movement away from front engine Offenhausers. I could talk about those for a while. They're really cool. I grew up watching big car racing. And I built this kit when I was a kid. Not this kit, but a kit like this kit, one of the original kits. And because the Ford Museum is just 3 hours away, I have pictures. I have pictures of the real car. So I have like the real color scheme, which is not quite like on the model. Like the exhaust is yellow instead of chromed, and the interior is sort of reddish leather instead of green. So I've got these that I could use as a guide, but I'm going to have to say that I don't really want to build this model yet. Okay, I don't really want to build this yet, so I'm going to say no to this one for the moment. It's going to go along with the Corvette convertible and the Aurora. This one is still in the running along with the Savoia at this point. Okay, this is a model of the USS Enterprise command bridge with highly detailed lifelike figures with the most, as I said before, the most amazingly wrinkled shirts I have ever seen. This is just a picture, right? It's just a picture. Why did you go through all the trouble of drawing in and painting or drawing or whatever they did to create this picture? All of these wrinkles. You could have just made the shirts. Okay, it's still in its original shrink wrap. And I looked it up, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't, if I did this, that I wasn't destroying like a highly collectible thing, because models in their shrink wrap, people collect those instead of build them. And it turns out that this is worth like $20. Okay, and there's a whole lot of them on eBay right now. So if I were to sell it, I could probably get like $18.50 for it plus shipping. But what I did see on eBay was kind of cool. There were a couple that were open, so they showed the model itself. And I had expected that this would have been molded in these colors, that there'd be black parts and red parts because of just the way the picture shows, and blue ones, that they'd be molded in these colors because oftentimes that is how they're done. But no, everything is just white. It's really a cheesy model. Everything is just, all the pieces are white, and so they'd have to be painted these colors, which wouldn't be all that hard. But I did speculate that all of these instrument panel things, that there would be stickers, not decals, because of when this was made. It was like in 80-something maybe. That there'd be stickers for all of these bits, and in fact, the model does have a whole sheet of stickers, which may or may not be intact. I mean, they might still be sticky, since this was shrink wrap, but it's been around for a while, and the adhesive might be gone. But, sticking things on using a different kind of adhesive, if the stickiness of the stickers isn't sticking, there's ways to do that. But anyway, yeah. So all of these, like, seriously, and this is what they think, even these things up here, they're stickers that make it look like that. So I'm going to keep this in the running because it's not a hugely rare collectible, kind of like the Deep Space Nine is. So right now, we got it down to 2. Having gone through others, the Savoya and the Star Trek Command Bridge. Not ready to make the choices yet because I'm going to use a little time before the break here to show you some other options. Since I've got like 4 months yet before I have to pick one, because it's going to take a while to get the submarine done. Sorry, I'm going off screen. Carefully not stepping on the models I put on the floor. At least not yet. To show you some of the other models I could work on and why I'm picking them out to look. Going back, here I am with things. Here's a pile of things. Yep, there we go. So I'm going to show you this one, and I'm going to keep it in the running for a little while, but I want to explain why I've got this model. Usually I build 1/48 scale models. Well, no, that's not really honest. If I were to build models, I would build them in 1/48 scale. Okay, so most of the models I've got, lots of airplanes, are 1/48, including a Blackbird, which is a really big, really large model. Okay, but this one I bought. And this is what it's supposed to look like when it's done. You're supposed to build a model and it's actually supposed to look like this, with this beautiful aluminum exterior and the flawless white on top and a little pinstripe. And somebody who was really good at modeling built this. Yeah, a lot of really good taping and airbrushing. But my uncle, who, was a 30-year veteran of the U.S. Air Force, worked in MATS, the Military Air Transport Service. And this is a U.S. Air Force MATS Connie. So when I saw this model for sale, it was, oh yeah, I've got to have that because that would be kind of like a tribute to my uncle. You could see that this was set up as a passenger plane. Probably, a Connie, a Convair constellation, Super G constellation, okay, called a Connie. Yeah, I mean, that would be carrying generals and their staff. If they were abusing their privilege, it probably was even like carrying their families to places that they didn't really need to go to, but had a warmer climate or something. Not that anybody would ever do that, but that's why I got this model. And I'm going to keep it in the running because if I can convince myself that I can make it look kind of like this, it would be kind of a cool thing to have. So the other two, well, I started picking things out, and then I just kept thinking, oh, I remember buying these. These are really kind of cool. Maybe I should consider them. In fact, I found another one that I'll talk about. So these are old, really old planes. The Wright Flyer, 1903, and the Blériot. I always loved the Blérios. Okay, the way they look. This one's still in the shrink wrap. These aren't particularly valuable models, but the nice thing about these is that they are like old style balsa wood and paper. There's tissue paper, and when I talk about old style, I really mean that. These are all the wing ribs. Lots of wing ribs, right? Okay. They're not even, there's not even any indentations or anything. These all need to be like cut out with a razor or a saw in order to do it. They do give you little sticks and little wires and stuff. And like I said, tissue paper that you're supposed to use that hasn't dripped yet. And when they full scale directions, so that you can get the wing spar and all the ribs like lined up, so it's not like little pictures or anything. And I bought these not because I know what I'm doing in terms of building this kind of model. I've never actually built a balsa wood and tissue model, but because if you're going to do a Wright Flyer or a Blériot, this is the kind of model that's the right way to do it, not a plastic model, and not Wright as in like Wright Flyer, not that kind of Wright, but as a correct Wright. So these are, this one's the same sort of thing. It's going to be a box full of like things that need to be sawn and cut out and sanded and shaped and covered with tissue and tiny little wires, real little strings and wires to rig it. So these might stay in the running for a while, because I forgot that I had these, and when I saw them, it was like, yeah. Of course, it's a lie. Okay. You saw what was inside of this, right? You saw that it was just basically a sheet of balsa wood with lines on it that all needed to be cut out, and the lines were like really broad, so you don't know if you're supposed to cut on the outside of the line or the inside of the line or whatever. Yeah, see what it says? That's not a lie. That's a lie. That's not going to be true. So the other one I pulled out, I'm probably not going to build this one, but I'm going to show it to you anyway, because we've got Submarine Wednesday. I've got another submarine model. This is the U-505, which was famously the German submarine that was captured during World War II in 1944, and it resides at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. We just actually stopped at the museum like around the New Year's and saw it again. And that's what it's supposed to look like when it's done. Again, we're looking at airbrush work kind of thing. This wouldn't be a difficult model to construct. I'd have to develop some airbrush skills in order to make it look any good. But the reason I pulled this out is if we wanted to continue to have a Submarine Wednesday, I actually have a submarine that I could build on Wednesdays. I could pull this off. It's a blue whale. And all it is are little pieces of wood that are just squeezed together. You don't even have to glue them. And I pulled this out because it was kind of stuck to the bottom of the submarine. So at this point, we've got these as options. I'm not going to keep showing the Savoia and the Star Trek. Well, I might. Anyway, so I've got these balsa wood and tissue models, which might be a real challenge, but I need to keep them in mind. The Connie, the Constellation, that it was like a plane that my uncle used to run the bases where these things would take off and land. He didn't fly them, but he was in charge of the base that did all of the scheduling and logistics and stuff. probably greeted the generals. "Hello, General," and saluted sharply and that sort of thing as the general got on this kind of plane, this luxury transport. And then the submarine. And then there's one more that I get to show you before the break. And I'm going to put these on my lap and hopefully not knock them down. This one I'm really tempted to build. It's very large. But when I saw this, I said, oh, I need to try to find one. This is the Apollo, sorry about the shrink wrap, the Apollo spacecraft, okay? And it's the whole thing. It's got the command module, and the escape tower, and the service module, and it has the, underneath there, if you can see it through the reflection, the space where the LEM was located, and there's a LEM. And these didn't actually fold down this way, okay? But that's how to display it. So the model itself has all these components. You've got the command module and the escape, you've got the service module, and you've got the container with the LEM where the LEM is. And I think this one wouldn't be that hard to build, other than getting the spray paint on there for the the white, getting the white right. It's kind of a matte color. The rest, like the lemon things and the detail in the service module, could be hand painted. And then there's all sorts of cool detail, like the service module itself has a fold-away door. It's sort of like the submarine in a sense, in that it opens up and you can see the detail of the inside of the service module and some of the wiring. And you can look through the hatch. You can look through the hatch of the command module and see astronaut heads, right? And the shrink wrap is breaking up anyway, for what the heck. And then, you got cool stuff like a real model of the LEM, and I guess a display base. So this one I'm really tempted to build. It's kind of a big model. I have no idea where it would be stored, just like I don't know where the submarine would go. But I remembered that was there. It was kind of buried down at the bottom, getting slightly crushed. And I think that would be kind of a fun one to build. So, I wanted to show these to you as alternative successors to the Renwall submarine, which is closer to being finished than when I started. I think, in order to be fair, I can say that I have made progress on it. And on Wednesday, you're going to actually see the interior completed. I'm going to assemble the last couple of rooms of compartments of the interior, and then most of the work will be trying to figure out how to get the tail and nose done, and some of that will end up having to be done off screen because it involves spray painting the hull, and I can't do that during the stream. I can't show you this. Yeah. But there isn't a studio. There's a piece of cardboard and a ring camera, right? And so I can't really show you how that would be done, so I'll probably just do it off screen and I'll show you the results. But then eventually it'll be finished and I'll have to move on to something else. And right now, the Savoia, the Star Trek bridge, this Apollo model is just really compelling, because of the detail and the way the components come apart and open up. The U-505, unless there's a huge outcry, say a submarine Wednesday has to continue to have a submarine, probably not, but it's there in case we want it. I think the Connie will be in the running. The balsa wood and tissue models are just really cool, but again, unless there's like somebody really wants that to happen, they probably won't. So, I narrow it down to 2 and then just add 1 or 2 more to the pile. and think, I'll just leave these out, and then during the next stream on Wednesday, talk about which ones made the cut and which ones didn't. So if any of you have any opinions about any of these, I know that Who wants the Savoya done, so we've got one vote for that. And I knew that Ola Brager really wanted the Corvette, but I am not ready to do that yet. But, anyway, yeah, that's the situation. And let me see. I have to put these down somewhere. Done now. Over to that side is I've created a hazard. I've got the ones that are not going to be built piled up on the floor where I haven't stepped on them yet. I have the ones I just showed to you stacked on top of a trash can, where I haven't knocked them over yet. And then I've got a couple more here on the bench. Really, we need to rearrange them like a little stool around a stool here. Yeah, there, where they could be knocked over as well. Oh yeah, so the next step here, the teeth need to be painted, the underside needs to be painted, the tops of all the spikes need to be highlighted in a sort of an orangish color. I'm just going to do the tips of the spikes somehow. The underbelly needs to be done. The next step really should be to do the underbelly so that there's the counter shading. And I'm just going to go ahead and do that. It's just going to be difficult because just getting the paint in there, I'm going to have to go like from the front and the back underneath the legs, and then try to soften the demarcation line by doing like little taps with a brush. And I haven't used this light blue paint in a long time, so I'll give it a good stir. It's this little tiny brush. Maybe I'm going to use this one with the long bristles, because I have to somehow reach underneath there and then like under the legs. I don't know. We'll see how this turns out. If worst comes to worst, we'll let the paint dry and I'll paint it over with this blue color if I can remember what color blue I used. I think I used flat blue, but I'm not sure. So I hope I don't have to do too much touch-up with the color that I don't know what color I used. Anyway, yeah, thanks for listening while I was talking about the things that might replace succeed? Yeah, succession. The submarine model that will be done sometime this calendar year. I hope this is a good color for it, because I don't want to do it again if it isn't. I'm probably going to have to put the head magnifiers on, even though I'm painting fairly large surfaces. There's no light. The light doesn't penetrate in the recesses underneath the belly here. Yeah, I've got a lot of touch up to do on the darker blue, which means that I need to, at some point, figure out what color it is. It's not working. What that's supposed to do, that's supposed to be like making an indistinct line. Like this is making an indistinct line. But there was too much paint on the brush, so it didn't do that. Oh, man. Yeah, I'm glad I'm doing this before break because it's not working right. Like I said, the unfortunate thing is, assuming I can find the blue that I used initially, is that I can repaint it. Which I need to do. I did not. I'm just giving up. I did not anticipate, as I should have. Painting the underbelly would be a difficult thing. Just sort of dabbing the paint on there, to make it look like it's an indistinct, not a clear cut. I'm looking at this, and other than the mess is kind of made, where the paint's gone in a lot of places where I didn't want it, including that little spike there. It's not as bad as I feared. I think it's actually kind of salvageable. But there's a lot of touching up I'll need to do with the blue paint that is the color. I don't know what it is. Could have been a lot worse. It pretty much is worse, but I think I can salvage it pretty well. But this is a mess, isn't it? Yeah, the bottle cap is just really a mess. Paint off the brush. This is going to require an alcohol bath. I'm going to do one thing which I probably really, should wait on, but I got this blue paint on one of the spikes, and I don't want it there, and I don't want to forget that it's there. This kind of gives you a hint about what needs to be done. I'm going to have to dry brush ivory paint on the outsides of these legs to get it to match the color as I was shown when I was shown an example of a basilisk. But before I go on break, let me pull up the color chart here. Let's try to identify the blue that I used. Either flat blue or royal blue. The flat blue was kind of up near the front. I don't even know if the royal blue is out here anywhere. And it would be good if... Yeah, there's royal blue. It would be good if this was the right color. So what I'm going to do before break is squeeze out a drop of this. Use this brush that still needs to be cleaned. What the heck? Okay. Take this and paint this section of the leg here, which needs to be touched up. I'm going to touch it up with this blue, and after it dries, I will see whether that's the same color as the color that's under or not. And if it's not, then I'll try the other one. Well, yes, I'm sort of glad I got that out of the way. Hi, welcome back. Just in time. You have returned just in time for me to go on break. But maybe I'll delay the break, maybe a little bit, just to let to do a recap and let you know what I'm trying to clean this brush. Thanks for the follow, but let me just give a recap of what's happening and a preview of what will happen after I return from the break. First of all, the recap is that there was some sort of major systems failure with this thing called OBS. That meant that none of the sound was working and it wasn't recording. Got past that, and now I'm working on the Basilisk. I got all the spikes painted. That took me forever. And I'm going to highlight those with an orange on the top so that the tops of the spikes are a little better. And then I did some underbelly painting, which turned out kind of mediocre, but there's a lot of touching up to do. And I am not sure what color paint I used, so I tested a paint there. And then I spent 15 minutes talking about what I'll be building after I'm done with the submarine sometime later this year. And the finalists, I'll just give you a preview. The three, after going through a whole lot of stuff, including another submarine model, which I'll keep around for a bit, is I've got this cool Star Trek command bridge model, okay, which is just really badly built, and it's got stickers in it, so it's like the typical model that was made back then. I've got Porco Rosso's airplane, and I've got this really amazing Apollo giant model that has the command in the service module. The door opens up so you can see the inside of it. and the bay where the lem is, and it's got a lem that goes inside the bay. You can see the kind of detail pieces. If you look at the box sides where they show you what the model looks like when it's been built. They even have the hatch open on the command module, so you can see the astronauts inside. Anyway, this was really tempting. This was kind of an expensive model. It's hard to come by unbuilt. So I think I probably spent too much money on it, but it's not like a rare thing that's going to go up in value. So I don't feel badly at all about building it if it came to that. But I have to say that it's now between these three models. There is one other model that I'm going to put into contention. It's the USS Constitution, the old Ironsides model. It was one of those where I bought two of them. I bought two of the models because it's hard to find them that weren't already started, and kind of hoping that, just like with the submarine where I had, I bought three of them in order to get enough parts to make one. But I bought two Constitution models, thinking that I'd have enough parts to make one with those two. But I totally forgot about it. That was actually one of the very first model kits I bought after I retired, because I thought it would be kind of cool to build. And it's really neat. It's got all sorts of string rigging and stuff on it, and a lot of little detail that you can use to, anyway. But I took a couple models out of contention and brought a couple more in, and on Wednesday I'll go through them again and probably narrow it down to 3, and then eventually 1. But I have until I'm done with the submarine to do that, which will be sometime between now. Cool. Yeah, I haven't done much building either. I think I bought 80 models that I thought I would be bored to death after I retired, and I haven't built any of them. Anyway, I'm going to take a break because I need to. I come back and try to repair this. It looks like that is the blue color. It matches. This blue is the blue. Do touching. So the first thing I'm going to do is do touching up with the blue. The second thing I'm going to do is paint the tips of all of these spikes in a different highlight color. Then I'm going to paint the teeth, and then probably do a little more blue touch-up. Actually, it would make sense to not do the blue touch-up until after I did the teeth, because I'll probably have to touch up around the teeth. So I'm going to paint the teeth first. Sometimes you have to talk these things through to oneself. I'm going to paint the teeth first, and then the spikes, and then the blue touch-up. And after the blue touch-up dries, now the last step is to do all sorts of ivory highlights on the blue. So I need to do the blue touch-up on the legs at least, and hope, blue touch-up on the legs where the light blue paint got on it, so that dries, so that I can do the ivory highlights on the legs. Okay, blue touch-up, teeth, spikes, more blue touch-up around the mouse, and then white highlighting on the legs. And then I'll see if I don't take too long a break, if I cut it short and get back to this, I might be able to finish it today, which I would like to do. So I'm going to take a break. Hopefully things will actually work after break. We'll see. Back from break. took a little longer than I thought because I was trying to schedule some stuff for later today that had to be rescheduled for Friday. And I didn't know that until anyway. Yeah, that kind of thing. So I'm going to do some touching up on this guy. On the legs where the light blue got... Thanks for the welcome. It's always a pleasant surprise to actually get back from break. So this microphone filters out a lot of noise. Like we're down in the basement, so you can hear the furnace and the well pump, the sump pump, and that sort of thing. So I'm not sure you can ever hear the buzzing from the vortex shaker thing that we use to stir the paint. Anyway, I'll just use this brush, I guess. Can't see up close with my glasses on. Can't see far away with them off. So it's always, part of being blind in one direction or the other. So these legs are supposed to end up having, according to the picture that I saw, kind of a whitish, kind of like this, except whiter and less blue. Lighting or detailing or something, I'm not sure what. Anyway, so I'm making them blue again so that I can put a different color over on top of them. Pretty much what happened was, getting the undershading on resulted in the paint getting on places where it didn't need to be or shouldn't have been. It's just me. It was just kind of a messy thing. Now I'm making it slightly less messy before I do the next stage, which will probably make it more messy. If anybody is new to the stream, explain that I am not a master modeler or a terribly good painter. But I was told we need minifigs and dungeon tiles for the Dungeons and Dragons streams, so you need to paint them. And if you're going to paint them, you might as well stream the painting. And so I paint them so that they are adequate for the show. But, they're definitely not display model kinds of things. So just make that very clear. And if anybody's watching this as like a how-to, it's definitely not a how-to. And as I say, at least once every other stream, sometimes it's a very much how not to do things. And someday I will actually get my oops button, which I will then push to have a really cute graphic that will say oops because I did something oopsie. Usually the oops is something like I knock something over and break it, or more often than not, I get paint where I don't want it by hitting it with the brush, on the way to or from the work. I have so far not knocked over a bottle of paint or spilled glue on, at least not spilled glue on the thing I was working on. Okay, next is the tooth. I'm thinking, I'm not going to make them pure white because that makes them glare too much. I was kind of tempted to do them in sort of a beige sort of color, a real off-white, but I was going to use the beige sort of color as the highlight on the legs. And I think I'm going to use it on the teeth. And this is a basilisk, right? It's not going to have pearly white choppers. Ooh, choppers. I said that on purpose to make it sound like old and almost anachronistic. Nobody says that anymore. Actually, I don't remember anybody ever really saying it except maybe once or twice, and then probably by mistake or thinking they were clever or whatever, even growing. Hey, you got a great set of choppers there. Huh? Yeah, I know it doesn't make any sense, but there it is. I'm going to put these back on so I can see stuff close up. And get the little bitty brush back out again. And hopefully this color will work. You really want to have to repaint them. I'm using this because it's not a real bright white. It's kind of an off-white beige color. Those of you who have watched the Submarine Wednesday will recognize this as the color that is used on the stuff from the machine shop. Okay, I'm just trying to see where the line of the teeth goes, and it does. It goes way up here. The body color is this dark blue, so anything too bright would just really contrast with it, maybe in an almost unpleasant way. You'll notice that I've got my after break, it always feels colder down here, vest on, because for some reason, and I don't know what the reason is, but there is a reason for some reason, it always feels colder after break. And so when I remember, I put on this really nice vest, which makes it feel warmer. But I still get the sniffles because it feels colder. Definitely got a lot of sharp teeth down here. There. It's got a great set of choppers. Yeah, I'm glad I used this sort of brownish color, because anything lighter would have really looked kind of silly. There's the eyes. I don't know, should basilisk eyes be like piercing bright red? I can't remember what they looked like on the picture that I was using as a color model thing. Like I said, I don't want to paint them until the very end, and then I don't want to look at them because, they're basilisk eyes. Okay, I'm going to paint the tips of all of these, or almost all of these spikes, and just the tips of them. Kind of an orangish red. So that they don't look so uniform. Oh, hi, Ola. Thanks for joining. Welcome back to, welcome back to Relaxing Painting. where I am still going to be doing relaxing painting for a little while. So I need to tell you, Ola Braga, that I have abandoned the Corvette convertible as a successor to the submarine, because just looking at the model and what would need to be done, I'm not prepared to be that skilled yet. You know, especially with the cementing and the airbrushing to get the paint job well done. You know, it's glossy paint, and it gets kind of tricky. So I set that aside. I still got the Savoya out, and I still got the Star Trek command deck. I looked that up, and it's not a highly sought after collectible. I mean, the kits aren't cheap. They're like $20 or something plus shipping, but they're not like super rare or anything like that. So I'm keeping the command deck, and I looked them up on eBay, and they had the couple that were open models, and they were not molded in color plastic like I thought they might be based on the cover art. They're all white, just plain white plastic, but they do have stickers. I was right about that. All the control modules and displays and things were done with stickers, which was, I think the model kit came out in like the 80s, so that was like the kind of thing to do. Is in a lot of model kits they replaced decals with stickers, even good ones, and so you had to buy like aftermarket decals because the stickers you couldn't do good modeling with stickers. The way decals are supposed to work is that they are supposed to look like they're painted on, and technically, I believe, decals actually are just paint. I mean, they are paint with an adhesive in it, or they are, if they're paint, they are adhesive. So, some models back in those days, they started making them with stickers instead of decals. Anyway, for the command bridge, it seems appropriate that they would just be stickers, because it looks like that kind of model. And then I pulled out a couple of other models. Now this paint is just drying right on the tip of the brush. I pulled out a couple of other models. There were some balsa and tissue models of the Wright Flyer and a Blériot that are kind of tempting to try. They are, the box says easy build. They're not. They're like old style. Like the wing ribs are nothing more than ink. They're balsa sheets with inked lines that are way too thick. It's like I was saying when I first opened it. So do you cut these out on the inside of the line or the outside of the line? And then there's a lot of sanding and shaping that would need to go on in addition. So those are really cool models, but I'm not sure I'm going to take those on at this point. And then I pulled out the U-505 submarine model, just in case we absolutely had to continue with a submarine on Submarine Wednesday. There is a submarine model that could be considered. I decided not to go ahead with the Lotus Ford racer. That's still kind of in contention, but I'm not sure I want to I don't know. Just didn't feel like building that right now. But I found a couple of other models that I'd almost forgotten about that are in contention. I'll show them again on Wednesday. One of them is the History Makers series, and it's the Apollo, upper stages of the Apollo. It's the command module, the service module, and the LEM. And the LEM even nests inside the fairing that it came in and was transported in. And the service module has a door, kind of like the submarine cutaway. I mean, it's almost kind of like that, where you can then see the detail of the inside of the service module. And the command module even has a hatch. The hatch, you can take off the hatch and see little figures of the astronauts on the inside. So in some ways, it's a continuation of the Brenwell submarine, in that it has cutaway details on the inside. So there'd be, a little bit of continuity kind of thing if I worked on that model. And in fact, the Savoia has the same feature. It's like somehow I'm on this theme of way details that we're noticing when I looked at the box of the Savoia Porco Rosso's plane. At the top of the fuselage lifts off, and the model has the interior detail, like the fuel tank and things like that you can see. So that's kind of the same. It's in the same kind of genre as well. So anyway, I'm going to, on Wednesday, look at the ones that are still in contention and announce the ones that are going to remain in contention, and try to narrow it down to 3. And I'm not going to add very many more to it, I think. There's one more I'd like to add to being in contention. If I can dig it out, I had forgotten all about it. It was one of the first models I bought. I think it was like the second or third one I bought after I retired. It's the USS Constitution. It's one of those large models of a sailing ship. And these are original ones too. They're not reproduction, not reissues. So I couldn't afford, or I didn't want to afford, a mint in box kind of one, because those are for like collectors I want to build. So just like the submarine, most of them have been started already and the parts are off and whatever. So I bought 2 of them, hoping that there would be enough usable parts in 2 models to build one. Kind of like with the submarine, I had to buy 3 in order to get enough usable parts to build one. If the molding quality is better, and I think this is actually coming out okay. The highlighting of the spikes, it looks better than it did with just the red, especially at kind of a distance. So I think on screen it would look pretty good. I'm glad I picked this kind of orangish color. It looks real porcupiney now. I don't know if that was the intent of the designer of this or not, but it's the effect. So it looks like I'm going to be able to finish this actually today. We've got an hour left and less than an hour of work. Maybe, depending on how it goes. So I did the teeth in kind of a buff color, which I'm glad I did, because otherwise The white would have been too bright. And I got the spikes done, and I've got the counter shading underneath. Yeah, it looks okay. It's not great, but it, for my skill level 0.5, came out all right. I dabbed it a little bit so it looks like the line isn't like just a straight line. It's just indistinct. And then based on the pictures I've seen of these, they're supposed to be like white highlighting on the legs, just like dry brushed on kind of. And I think I'm going to use ivory for that. It'll be kind of bright, but it's not. I'm going to try to keep it translucent. And then I'm going to put some beady red eyes on. And then paint the base, which will be a challenge because there's all these little toes and hardly any space into which to get the brush to paint it. So yeah, that could be usually that's a very easy thing to do at the end, but this time it's not. I think I should probably paint the claws too. What do you think? Should they be? Yeah, I need to paint the claws. Maybe I'll do that now while I'm thinking of it. I'm trying to think if I want them to be lighter or dark. I'm thinking just dark. They always need to be black in order to show up against the field blue. That might be a good color. It's almost a black color. Otherwise I'll use NATO black. Yeah, field blue. Sea blue is even better if I could find sea blue. I think I've got that somewhere. I think there's a little jar of it here. Yeah, I haven't used this in ages. Let's see if it still works. I'm just going to be painting the little bitty claws on all 8 legs. All the toes and all the legs. I know it's not much, but it actually does make a difference in how the thing looks. As if the little claws on the toes are painted or not. Sorry about the sniffing. It's just like the post-break, it gets chilly for some reason. I don't know why. This is scarcely blue at all, but it's not pure black either. It should be a good toe claw color. Painting the base of this thing as I'm getting down into it. It's looking more and more yucky. It's like it's going to take forever to get whatever color I'm going to paint this thing. Either really light gray or maybe even green. Probably light gray. Almost like lighter than, about the same color as the primer maybe. Light enough so that it contrasts with the blue. Yeah, I know I'm getting this dark paint all over the base, but that's okay. Because I have to cover it up with the base color anyway, whatever color that turns out to be. The secrets I've learned as a very amateurish painter is as long as your paint will cover, you can get away making a mess with the initial coats, because the next color you have to paint on there anyway will cover it up. And I need to be careful once instead of careful twice. I know it's not very much, but if you look at the model having the toenails painted, you know, the claws painted, you know, it makes it look better. Doesn't look great because it's all over the base, but, you know, like you can see on that one there in front, you know, it does make it look different. It's an improvement in the fine detail of the poorly detailed model thing here. Okay. Footage continues. I don't know why it is, but I do know that in the pictures I've seen of Basilisk minis, they are mostly blue like this, with red spikes and things. And then the outsides of the legs have these white dry brushed areas, and so I'm going to try to do that. I might actually use this. I think this will be a good one. I actually just found this. I don't know where it's. I found this laying about and haven't used it before. The monster brush. I don't know why it's called a monster brush. Maybe it's one of the bigger ones they make as opposed to the tiniest one they make. So in the spirit of dry brushing, I want to get as little paint on the brush as I can, which means putting paint on it and then dabbing it until it's mostly gone. Dab it on this. Because with this technique, it's always easier to put more on. It's not that easy to take it off. And that's actually kind of how it looked. That's what I saw. Like I said, I don't really know why. It's supposed to look that way, but that's how it looked. Concentrating mightily on the dabbing of the little whitish paint. I did have kind of a fun monologue about, Ned and how whenever Ned walked in the room, the TV started turning to snow. Because this morning that sort of thing happened is for a reason unknown, the thing called OBS wasn't working, and so the stream that I started wasn't recording and there wasn't any sound. So it was one of those, well, need to reboot. And then and that fixed it. After pretty much basically just, restarted everything, turned the computer off. So that's kind of how it looked in the pictures that I saw. Got too much on this leg. I don't know. Maybe I can reverse to it. Reverse by putting a little bit of blue paint on and dabbing it on the white. What do you think? Make it look less white by dotting blue paint on the place where there's too much white. The brush is wet, and I kind of like what it's doing. It's kind of smearing the paint a little bit. I'm going to do that in all the legs here. Okay. Now the other thing I can do, I'm going to try this, is I've got some blue wash. Gray blue wash, and I'm thinking what it might do is help tone down just a little bit the blue along the back here. I'm going to just do that in little dabs as well, just to give it maybe some variation. This is a blue-gray wash. Use a tiny brush on it, really, because I don't want too much and I don't want it everywhere. I'm going to try to get it, especially on the top here, to maybe show some of the skin wrinkles or something. It's kind of a subtle thing. I'm not sure it's showing very much. looking at it now. I'm just going to kind of puddle it around. Use a little more of it than I was planning. Use it on the feet. Definitely on the feet as well. Yep, hurting it, that's for sure. It's not making it look worse. Whether it's making it look better or not, I don't know. But it's not hurting it. Maybe it's helping it. This is just a little bit of grayness that kind of maybe makes it a little less electric blue. Kind of hoping that that's the case. Dappled look. Would use if I used the dark wash, it would just make it look black. I don't want that. Little variations in the blueness. Getting some of the gray pigment around. Started out putting out a little bit, but now I actually want a lot of it. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm putting more of it and trying to make it look uneven. Base, which is going to take a good deal of time, and then the basilisk eyeballs, which will turn this all into stone once I paint them. Yeah, I don't know if you can. There's no before and after, but this gray blue wash is definitely a thing that is good to have on here. You almost not know it was there, but if you saw it as a before and after, you would know. Okay. Yeah, the base getting in between all those little toes. Really want the base to be kind of a light color. Wonder what I've got that would work. That is almost tempting to use the same color as the teeth, that kind of beigey white, and then I could put a brown wash on it. Dark sandler? Like, look at that. That might be a good color. Dark sand or deck tan. Kind of like that gray color. That deck tan is pretty good. This is too brown. I'm going to see if I can find deck tan. There it is. This is the color of the base. And then I can either use a brown or a gray wash on it, depending on how it turns out. Well, we'll see how this goes. Ooh, this is almost gone. And hopefully it will work okay. It was a standard oops. That is to say, the paint on the way to the surface to be painted oops its way onto a part that didn't need that color. You got some toenail touching to do. Okay, well, what's happening here is that the blue wash that I was so happy about hasn't quite dried yet. Usually I have next to no touching up to do after painting the base, but this one's turning into quite a challenge. I got impatient. Impatient, and as a result, getting running of the blue wash into the base paint. Definitely have some toenail touching up to do. Not too much, but just little dots here and there. And it looks like I'm going to have maybe a couple of spots where the base coat blue needs to be touched up as well. Use a different brush to get in the underneath here. When's the time coming? Well, I got a lot of time to do this, so I'm taking my time. Yes. And since Alexis went through the trouble of printing a Basilisk, that we are going to end up facing one sooner or later. And it will be represented by this particular Basilisk model. This particular little minifig might become a star on the D&D stream, because Dice and Dungeons is all about Dungeons and Dragons. If you didn't know that, you haven't heard me talk about it over and over and over again. But as I am trying to do this, oh my, that was a bad oops. As I do my best to try to paint this base, I'm going to talk about how Dice and Dungeons is a group of family and friends who run a Dungeons and Dragons show that streams with a live chat 3 Sundays a month at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time until it's daylight time. Then it will change to daylight time. Daylight saving time. Constantly reminded when I go online that there is no S in, well, there is at the beginning of saving, but it's not savings time, it's daylight saving time. To be precise about that, I just get criticized. So yeah, with the live chat, 3 Sundays a month. Just streamed this last Sunday. And social media, for those of you who actually go on social media, I don't exist, I guess, in the real world, because I don't go on social media. But those of you who do can get an accurate schedule of the streaming of the Dungeons and Dragons show. And it is a show, it's not just a basement game. Although the studio is in a basement, so I guess technically it is. But it's a real show. And it's pretty professionally produced. It's really cool. You should, if you can't catch it with a live chat, check it out on YouTube or even as a podcast, because it works that way too. And I think you will come to like it. But Relaxing Paintings started out as the place where the dungeon tiles and the minifigs for the show got painted, and it's just getting streamed now. That's why it's on right now. This is probably going to be one of those things that actually shows up as in one of our combats. Our characters run into a basilisk. I don't know. Does that mean somebody's going to get chat room? How did that get on? I don't understand sometimes how things either work or don't work. What I do know is that nothing was working when I started the stream this morning. I shouldn't say nothing was working. I should say much of it was not working. There's no audio, no sound, and it wasn't being recorded. Anyway, it was a hard reboot. It was like, sorry folks, we're going to try to fix this by just shutting it down and starting it over. And as is often the case, that worked. But there was a half hour of things not working. So I will apologize for that. I'll take responsibility for it as being the kind of person who sometimes just makes electronics not work by their mere presence. And if you didn't catch the monologue during the first part of the show, I went through a long stream of consciousness story about how it was, in fact, a thing that could happen back in the old days of black and white broadcast TV, where you had rabbit ear antenna in your living room that could actually be disrupted by static discharges and things like that in the environment. So it's kind of anecdotal, but I believe it, it really did happen, that sometimes an individual would walk into the room and the TV would just go to snow because of some sort of, sweater-borne static discharge. I have to do some blue touch-up on these feet. Not a surprise, given the picture of base is done. Looks like I've got paint on the base in places where it needs to go anyway. Give a couple of minutes to dry, and then I'll get the blue out again and get the alcohol bath out again and get these brushes clean while I'm waiting for that to dry. So if you missed it, you can go back and catch the monologue about called him Ned. Why? I don't know. Why not? Why not Ned? Having the same effect I apparently had on everything this morning when it didn't work. Had to make a special call to Alexis for technical help. But, she wasn't happy about being disrupted and interrupted, but did come down and tried a whole bunch of stuff and finally just, did the typical thing. Turn it off, wait 30 seconds, and start again. I imagine your chat bot, whatever, is going to tell you that. It's like, something's not working, what should I do? And it'll say, well, there are two things you can try. One is it plugged in? That's the kind of advice you'll get from your chat bot. And then the other is turn everything off and wait 30 seconds. Try again. Because, that's just the way it is. That's how you get everything to work. This is the toenail color. Touching up some toenails. And there's a fair amount of toenail touching up to do right at this, the point of the feet. Fiction of oopses. It's exciting. And now I'll get out the blue, the body blue color, and try to do some more touching up. I'm trying to look at the wall clock, and I've got these head magnifiers on, and I can't see the distance, so there. All sorts of things. Yeah, I'm just doing silly little bits of touching up right now. I mean, infinitesimal little spots that will be invisible to the viewer of our D&D campaign once this is streamed. Better or worse, they are visible under 2 times magnification of the head magnifier. So, making an effort to, make this look like a decent amateur job. Definitely not pro level model. Not your pro level display model, nope. But it is an adequately done amateur model that will look okay on the D&D stream. Pretty sure it will look okay there. Put too much paint in, it all gets wasted. Don't squeeze out enough paint in the little palette thing here, and it dries before it gets used. As many really bad spots as I thought there were. That's usually how it works with me for touching up, is that it looks like a really bad mess, a big oops, and then I get out the touch-up paint and turns out there's hardly anything, just tiny little dots. Well, there, that when I touched it up, it got out of control, but I'm not going to mess with that anymore. Good thing I turned it. For some reason, there's an oops on the chin. That was weird. I mean, that's not anywhere near the area I was painting. There was a big spot of base color right on the bottom of the chin. Yeah, you can't really see it unless there was a before and after, but I put a bunch of the blue-gray wash on that, and it toned down the bright blueness of it, and it gave it a little more variation, especially in like the creases and stuff. And I have to say that I'm glad I did that. It really helped make the model look better. So other than this out of control toenail that I'm not going to bother with, there's a spot there or not. I've got the eyes yet. That's all that's left of the eyes. And I can either do that with glossy red paint. I think I'm going to try it. I'm going to try that. I've still got time. If it goes badly, I still have time for the glossy red paint to dry and to touch it up with the blue again. Almost flat red. I know I've got a glossy red. Got Gorilla Glue there. Yeah, This is the glossy red. Try this for the eyeballs. I haven't used this in ages, so it's all settled to the bottom. It needs to have a major stirring, so we all get to listen to the buzzing unless it's filtered out by the microphone, which it might be. I stop talking. No. Yeah, I was told by Alexis that the way this microphone is set up, that it filters out almost all sounds other than my voice, which is kind of like an inverse of what maybe it should do. But yeah, this is making this wonderful buzzing noise, and I know who likes this. If I get it rotating just right, it shakes the whole picture. Yeah, so when I look up at the screen in terms of what the microphone is sending, yeah, hear the noise at all. No. Can't hear this furnace cycle. You can't hear the sump pump. You're missing all of the really cool ambient sounds. Okay, well, I'm going to try to get this like symmetrically, that is to say, the same blop of bright red glossy paint in each eye socket. I don't know. Let's see how it goes. No, it's not perfect, but if the other one looks the same, it will do. Bigger. Intentionally getting paint outside of the eye socket, that it actually so it shows up better on camera. See, like that's pretty good. That's a nice big one. This one's staying in the eye socket, and I want it just a little bit bigger vertically. You can't ever see both eyes at the same time. Okay, well, I didn't turn to stone. Not that I'm aware of, anyway. So that's good. And, if the glossy red paint comes out of this brush, it's just water. Need these anymore. I'm going to charge these, recharge them, because I'm going to need them probably on Wednesday. And you start wrapping up Relaxing Painting with Dyson Dungeons Monday edition, returning from my dog sitting stint. So I will apologize having been away for a little more than a week. But I think I've got 2 weeks yet of doing Relaxing Painting with Dyson Dungeons before there's another interruption. So there always will be. What I've got here is a basilisk, painted in the colors of the picture of a basilisk I was shown, which is to say blue with red spikes and for some reason white on the legs like that. So yeah, I spent a good deal of time painting all those spikes on the top because there's a lot of them, and then I used a lighter kind of orangey red to highlight the tips of them, and I think that combination came out pretty well. It definitely looks better than it did when they were just the same dark red color. And then I put a blue gray wash on the body that was fairly subtle. It didn't change the color too much, but it toned it down so it wasn't such bright blue. And it highlighted the contours. I put the white on the legs because that's how it did. I did the counter shading on the underbody, and I think that came out okay. I got kind of an uneven line there, especially on the tail where it shows. Got its teeth. There's lots of teeth. Okay, and as the paint dried, they all kind of separated, which is nice. And now it's got beady, glossy red eyes as well. And then the base, it's just a beige base. I wanted to pick a color that kind of contrasted with the Basilisk. So I'm declaring the Basilisk done and a success. Once again, I have achieved adequacy. And I think when we run into this in our D&D campaign, it'll look pretty decent on camera. It'll look okay, depending on, regardless of the angle. It came out kind of all right. So there's that. And on Wednesday, I'm returning to Submarine Wednesday. And what I should accomplish, unless something bad happens, we have new camera. You need to check it out. There's an upcoming episode where we had a combat. The monitors got all rearranged in the rooms and in the studio rooms. So, there's a new camera angle, lower. Instead of just looking down at it this way, it looks across at it this way. It looked really good, at least from what we could see during the session. So that should be pretty decent. So check it out. Check out our D&D campaign. Thanks for everybody who came on. Thanks for the new follow today. If you like Dice and Dungeons, either Relaxing Painting or better yet, our Dungeons and Dragons campaign, become a follower. If you watch it on YouTube, I think there's a thing called sponsor. You can become a sponsor on YouTube, but that would be really cool. Definitely catch it on Twitch. And then, there's always, one has to always mention this, patreon.com/diceanddungeons, patreon.com/diceanddungeons, and you can become a patron. And I wonder if the cursor shows on the stream, or if it just shows up here on my screen. I don't know. Patron. And if you become a patron, you can get access to our Dungeon Master session notes. Those are being published. And you can also get access to our improv warm-up sessions that we run before each session. Sometimes they are hilarious. Sometimes they're just silly, but they're always fun. And of course, at certain levels, you can even get into the credits or have, express your opinion about what might happen in certain episodes. So check out patreon.com/diceanddungeons. Check out sponsorship on YouTube. Check out following on Twitch. Tell all your friends and relatives, neighbors, acquaintances, random people on the street about Dice and Dungeons and have them check it out. Relaxing Painting is going to return on Wednesday, where I really hope this works, assembling the final interior parts of the entire submarine. There are 2 compartments and 4 decks that go into the machine room, and I have all of the parts prepared. I just need to get them to get into the hull without breaking anything. And then there's one little nasty bit. There's a pipe that has to be installed between the top of one of the machinery equipment things in the machine room and the exit from the reactor room. So I'll be fiddling around with that probably to no end, trying to get that in there without smearing cement on everything and making a mess. We'll see. It should be an interesting experience getting those last bits in, and then that means that the interior of the submarine will be fully assembled. What I'll be working on then are the rear dive planes and propellers, finding the parts and getting them to fit, maybe even cementing some together. And the cutaway edges. All of the cutaway edges need to be sanded down a little bit and then painted very, very carefully with the hull color so that it looks like it's the hull cut away, right? I thought about just leaving it raw plastic, but it doesn't look good. So I'm going to paint it the hull color. And the trick there is they're really tiny edges, like less than a 1/16 of an inch, and it's getting the paint on the edge without getting it onto any of the interior stuff that's already been adequately painted. Anyway, yes, I will be trying to move stuff aside, making more room on the work surface here, raising the camera so you can see it, not up close, but, at least what I'm working on. And sometime on Wednesday, if all goes okay, you should be able to see the entire completed interior of the Renwall Cutaway submarine. And then it's just, at that point, working on a bunch of exterior stuff, some of which I'm going to have to do off stream, because it involves like spraying paint, which I can't do here. Okay, and I don't have any cameras anywhere else. So, yeah, hopefully that will go okay. Oh, what that means, though, is, even though the submarine might take a while yet to complete if it's done off camera, I need to do something on camera, which, I was thinking I'd have a lot of time before I decided on what would happen next, what would come after that. But it looks like maybe we're going to have to make a decision sooner than later. So on Wednesday, I'm going to go over the options again, try to narrow it down as much as I can, and then settle in on a model that will be next. Yeah, that should be interesting. So join in on Wednesday for submarine drama. Some completion progress, some really kind of boring stuff where I'm fishing through the boxes, trying to find the right parts and doing some sanding and fitting. Maybe I'll try to do some assembly of the stand and the part of the hull that flips down. I was thinking of painting the hull. Yeah, I'm going to paint the hull color, spray paint it between now and Wednesday. I think I can do that. I can't paint the base, though, until the base is cemented together, because there's going to be little seams that show, the cement seams, and those will have to be filled in and sanded. But then I will very carefully mask off the already painted hull and paint the base some other color. Yeah, it's just little fiddly bits down at the end I'll be working on stream, assuming I get the rest of it, assuming I can get the rest of it installed, and depending on how shaky my hand feels, paint the edges, the cutaway edges where the hull color will show through. So thanks again. Really appreciate you coming back to Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons. I'm glad to be back. The dogs survived my dog watching. They made it through. They are happy and healthy. They're especially happy to be back with their dog parents as opposed to being with me. Not that they didn't like me. After a few days, we reached an accommodation and they got very friendly. But yes, the dogs are happy and healthy. Dog setting was a success. The Basilisk was a success. The submarine, I'm certainly hopeful, will also be a success on Wednesday. So I'll see you then. Wednesday, more or less 10. Assuming everything works again. If it doesn't work, like it didn't work this morning, it'll be a little bit later. But yeah, that's what's going to happen Wednesday. Submarine Wednesday. It'll be pretty nice if it all fits together. Why am I dawdling? Thanks again. Take care. See you Wednesday.